Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. We got a packed one for you. Let's get right into it. Robert Mueller is examining Trump's tweets now in a wide-ranging obstruction inquiry that is still continuing. We're also going to take a look at how the White House is doing in reuniting those immigrant families we have heard so much about. Also, still, people are continuing to freak the F out over this whole entire thing with Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. We get one-two punch of stories going on that. Someone set Betsy DeVos's big stupid yacht adrift. That's pretty cool. The White House is attempting now to stop reporters from asking questions, and it's getting pretty ridiculous. Conservative teens are being stupid as well at Turning Point USA, the pretty retarded conference that we all know and we all talk about it. So yeah, I just scroll down on that article and I saw literally in a tweet, Peter Thiel is joining them. Oh my god, that is some fun stuff, everyone. Yeah. So anyway, we still do have quite a lot of stories for you, but first we're gonna have to get into something that's a little bit boring because, well, that's kind of what happened. Yeah. So, for years, as we know, President Trump has used Twitter as his go-to public relations weapon. New York Times writes, mounting a barrage of attacks on celebrities and then political rivals, even after advisors warned he could be creating legal problems for himself. Those concerns now turn to be well-founded. Special counsel Robert Mueller is scrutinizing tweets and negative statements from the president about Attorney General Jeff Sessions for the former FBI Director James Comey, according to three people briefed on the matter in part of his obstruction of justice case. So several of these remarks came as Trump was also privately pressuring the men, both the key witnesses in the inquiry, about the investigation, and Mr. Mueller is examining whether the actions add up to attempts to obstruct an investigation by both intimidating witnesses and pressuring senior law enforcement officials to tamp down the inquiry. My bet is he's probably going to find a lot of stuff, especially with Comey and even with Sessions, who he was berating for a good portion of about a year ago. I do remember, it was a big story. The continued attacks on Jeff Sessions, who did survive on that, by the way. And what they're going to do is they're definitely, for those of you who are maybe thinking like this has no shot of actually convincing anyone that there's actually obstruction of justice, you just can't use Trump's tweets on this matter. The likely situation is that Robert Mueller will not use Trump's tweets to try to prove to a jury or a grand jury of some sort that there is obstruction of justice committed by Donald Trump. The likely scenario is he will use that as a case, a point of upholstery on broader obstruction of justice evidence that hopefully he will have gathered at some point. So that's probably what he's going to do. That's most likely here what his course of action will be. And so, yeah, that's what he's doing. He's now looking into Trump's tweets. He wants to also question, from what we know, the president about the tweets. His interest in them is the latest in addition of a range of presidential actions he is investigating as part of a possible wide-ranging obstruction case. Some of those include private interactions with Comey, Sessions, and other senior administration officials about the Russia inquiry, and misleading White House statements, public attacks, and possible pardon offers to potential witnesses. So that could be very interesting if they do try to find out something like that. We're going to move on now to a quick story here. New Jersey, this is pretty much all we really need to tell you about this story. I'm just gonna stick with the first sentence here. It took just hours for a conservative radio station in New Jersey to suspend two of their most prominent talk show hosts after the pair repeatedly referred to the state attorney general Gubir Grewal, a practicing Sikh, as Turban Man. So this is Dennis Malloy, New Jersey 101.5 Conservative Talks. Here it is. We're going to play this. We're going to play this for you.
Hey, listen, and if
all right, we're gonna.
The attorney general.
Yes.
Guy,
So here
I'm
this
never
is.
going to know his name. I'm just going to say the guy with the turban.
Okay.
The new attorney general.
Turban Man.
Yes.
Hey, listen, and if that offends you, then don't wear the turban, man. I'll remember your name. But turban man, is that highly offensive?
To me?
Yeah.
No. To people who wear turbans? Could be.
Could be, but if you called me baseball hat man and I was in a culture where nobody wore baseball hats,
right,
and they called me baseball hat man, should I be offended?
No. I would say no.
No. So
wow, they both agree that what they're doing is not offensive at all. Yeah, so those radio hosts have been suspended. So that's a great story about conservative talk media. Before I saw that, I want to get that off the paint there just quickly, because oh boy, that is a good one. Anyway, we now move on to the continuing bleep show with federal authorities that say they have now met the deadline to reunite migrant families. But have they? Caitlin Dickerson, Annie Coriel, and Mitchell Furman of the New York Times did a great story on that. We're going to quickly analyze. But first, I do want to rewind the tape because I just want to get back to that story really quick. Like, these guys are sitting in front of computers. Like, they know they knew that was going to be a little bit offensive. Like, they knew probably that some people just may be offended by that. And by the way, I do believe they've been... How long were they suspended for? Probably, I think it was like 2 weeks. Turban Man, as I like to call it. Yeah, but anyway, so who cares? They're really irrelevant people. No one listens to conservative talk radio. But anyway, the point is we're going to move now on towards this story. The federal government reported on Thursday that it was close to reuniting the last migrant families separated at the southwest border who have been deemed eligible for reunification and would substantially meet a court-ordered deadline to reverse a contentious immigration policy that drew international condemnation. Officials from the Department of Homeland Security said that they had reunited 1,442 of the last group of children with their parents and expected to complete all eligible reunifications by midnight Thursday Pacific time. So hopefully they can get that done. And because this is not a point of partisan politics. As I know there will be some Democrats out there who can be like, maybe you should miss it because then I'll be getting in trouble. No. The point is just to get these people back with their families and just get the process to a normal life. Because for these 5-year-old kids, some really young kids who've been separated from their parents at that period of time, even though a 13-year-old kid being separated from their parents at a time like that is a lot. It takes a lot to get to reunite and just get back with these kids. So it's very important that they're able to do this. But still, hundreds of children, so they're expected to apparently complete all eligible reunifications by midnight Thursday tonight. Still, hundreds of children remain in government custody, and work to address the effects of the family separation policy was far from over. The parents who were deemed eligible for reunification represent only about a third of those who were separated from the children after crossing the border. A practice that began last summer and escalated in May. At least 917 other parents of children older than 5 were not cleared to recover their children this week because they failed criminal background or parental verification checks. The parents of 46 children under 5 years old were similarly executed. So at least 917, and apparently parental verification checks, criminal background checks. And I mean, I think it's worth looking into. Was this effect investigated quickly? And I think that's really worth looking into. I do believe that is something that probably should be taken into account. I'm going to be honest here. But, I mean, in the end, I think it's also very important that, we're not sending these kids back with just, child traffickers. But, which, I mean, is also, again, not that big of a problem. But still, let's just hope that they get these kids back in time. Because already there has been so much problems with just getting these kids back. Anyway, let's see. The parents of about 431 children appear to have been deported without them. That's great. And the government has yet to find those parents, their futures, along with the 37 children whose parents, who have not been yet identified, remain uncertain. So those 37, and there's also 431 children. So 431 plus 37 plus 917. So all eligible reunification should be apparently completed by Thursday. Midnight Thursday Pacific time. So apparently, 1,442 have been reunited. 1,100 have not been reunited for various reasons. The government is saying that just makes them eligible for reunification. So they are apparently going to do that. But I think the question is, what happens to those kids anyway? Do they just get deported? Do they get back with their parents in another country? That is a little weird. So, yeah. Still, it appears the judge handling this case, Dana Sabral, the federal district court in San Diego, was inclined to allow the government some leeway in complying with his order to rapidly bring separated families back together. The parties are really working through the issues in a very measured and successful way, given the enormity of the undertaking. Judge Sabra said at a status hearing early this month, the reunification has unfolded in the chaotic scenes across the country. Many have been concentrated in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, where families have been funneled into federal offices that were designated as staging facilities, as overwhelming local resources to the extent that some parents have had to wait days after arriving to rejoin their children. One such facility in South Texas, the Port Isabel Detention Center, the government has been labeling these parents as released while they're still in custody, according to Bethany Carson, who works for Grassroots Leadership, a nonprofit advocacy group in Austin. Carson said that hundreds of parents were sent to Port Isabel in recent weeks after receiving word in the middle of the night from ICE that their children had arrived, and the parents quickly changed into street clothes and were broken into groups about 70 to wait to be reconnected. Some waited up to a week, Carson said, and were not allowed access to shower, phones, or religious services while efforts stalled to return to their children. So they're completely cut off from the outside world, and officials are saying they're free. Yes, there's a lot of wrinkles in this case that need to be really, in my opinion at least, looked into and really decided quite quickly. And yeah, because like if this is if this is like happening in the future, like we should really try and fix this out, because these parents, because there's going to be ways the government tries to take shortcuts, and we need to really, in my opinion, at least look and make sure that we're actually getting the job done, because it's just not like, do you trust these people to do it in a good way? Because, I don't get, if you do, I don't get why, because they've just proven they haven't, and, also, just, let's be real. Let's be real. It's definitely worth following and looking into very, very completely, because that's just not okay. Yeah, so the hours and days after reunification have come up with their own challenges, which have largely been absorbed by aid groups tapped by the government to provide emergency shelter, food, and as well as transport. While it's not typical for the government to support migrants once they're released from federal custody, a separation policy left families far from the border, where a long-established network of shelters and volunteer organizations have traditionally provided support. So yeah, hopefully these people are okay, but this is definitely something that is worth watching. All right, so yeah, we do have right now, this whole situation just continuing to unfold. It really is quite a mess at this point. And yeah, though I just might say, because we may be able to have on the show, and this is, again, not confirmed or anything like that, but if we were able to have on the show at one point or another, one of the reporters who actually wrote that story there, Caitlin Dickerson, she's one of the writers for immigration for the New York Times. If we were able to have her on the show through her busy schedule, which I do know is very busy, that would be really quite some cool stuff if we get her to really focus on immigration. That would be, if it were to happen, would be kind of in a few weeks. You'd be able to hear it, and it would not be on this show. It would be on our new show, Spotlight, which is coming out. So you can subscribe to that on iTunes if you want to hear Caitlin Dickerson come in, possibly. Yeah, if this were to air, it would be coming out, if this, hypothetically,